All right, Larry Kruger here for the Pig and a Pickle Krueg show with a little 49er video. And today, man, we got a good one for you. Tony Pauline, my good friend, who scouted for a number of years in the NFL draft prospects, has a fantastic article out reviewing the 49ers draft. He's one of the best. We hang on his every word. We'll tell you what Tony had to say about the 49ers draft class. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville, Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California on the Monterey Peninsula. Thanks to Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264, and he's a great follow on the gram at Sharp Corners 831 on the IG. All right, let's talk a little Tony Pauline. Tony Pauline is a former NFL scout. He writes for a publication called Sports Cada. Anyway, he did a little breakdown on the Niners draft and what they did, what they didn't do, what they liked, what they didn't like. Or what he liked and didn't like. So he actually likes a lot of their draft picks. I mean, I'm very surprised. He really likes them. He called Mykel Williams a terrific pick, the Georgia junior who the Niners drafted in the first round of the draft. He likes Mykel Williams. Said he was a terrific pick. And then he went on and talked a little bit about Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle from Texas. And he said he's an athletic and explosive prospect. Interestingly enough, Tony's thought on Collins is that Collins needs to get stronger. You think of a guy that big, you just don't think of a guy who needs to get stronger, but functional strength is a major element of playing defensive tackle. And according to Tony, he thinks Alfred Collins needs to get stronger, but he thinks he's capable of occupying blockers and making plays on the ball, and that the film showed that if you go back and watch his film at Texas. Tony moved on to Nick Martin. Tony really, really likes Nick Martin. Tony Pauline's a big Nick Martin fan. He said Nick is an explosive athlete, described him as violent, shows an ability in pursuit and ability to blitz, and says his game is very similar to Dre Greenlaw's game. I thought that was kind of interesting. The nice thing about Tony is he doesn't love, it's not like he just loves everybody. Oh, I love this guy, I love that guy, this prospect, that prospect. Tony acknowledged that, what a lot of scouts acknowledge, that Upton Stout is a small player, and Tony acknowledged that a lot of NFL scouts really like Upton Stout, but he thought that was a reach in the third round, and he called him a dime back and a special teamer. He acknowledged that there's scouts out there that really like him, but at the same time, he kind of made it seem like, wasn't his favorite pick there in the third round and called it a reach. He did call C.J. West a terrific prospect. He says that West shows pass rush potential, and he did at the Shrine game. I called him an immovable object in the middle of IU's defense. And C.J. West, here's the thing about C.J. West. Enormously strong. To me, he's my favorite player the Niners drafted this year. He's enormously strong. You can't move him out of the hole. He's a great run defender. He needs work, and this is where Chris Kasarik is really going to help him. He needs work at getting off the football. Doesn't get off the football consistently. And when he does, and puts together some hand placement and some technique, and consistently gets off the ball, this guy's going to rush the passer. And once he's a pass rusher, now you've got a real wrecking ball kind of player. So I'm a big C.J. West fan. I think he's a very good run defender right out of the chute, maybe even a week one starter. And I think eventually his pass rush game is going to come. But Tony said he saw that pass rush potential when he saw C.J. West at the Shrine practices. The one thing about C.J. West that's really impressive is the hand strength. So as a pass rusher, he engages and then he throws guys away. I mean, it's really something to watch. But that's not technique. That's pure raw power and strength from the elbow to the fingertip. And that's where I want my defensive tackles to be really strong, is from the elbow to the fingertip. But C.J. West is ever going to be a great player, and I think he is going to be a great player. That pass rush has got to come along. And right now, He's a run defender and not really a pass rusher. Pauline thinks the Niners got steals in both wide receiver Jordan Watkins and running back Jordan James. He said of Watkins, he said, man, he's got terrific vertical speed and reliable hands, and said that he thinks Watkins needs work and refinement in his route running. But you know, if Tony thinks Watkins and Jordan James are steals, you know, that really bodes well for the Niners. Now, about Jordan James, you know, he basically said that, you know, the guy was pushed down the board because of the numbers. The computer numbers weren't great. The 40 time wasn't great. But if you put on the tape and you watch the film of Jordan James, you see a guy who's ideally suited for this offense. You see a guy who plays faster than his 40 time. You see a running back that has a violent running style, that creates yards after contact, that breaks tackles. But this player also is a terrific pass catcher and has potential, I think, this year as a rookie to step in as a third down back right away and contribute. So the fact that, you know, Jordan Watkins and Jordan James, in Tony's mind, are potential steals, that just makes me that much more excited about their potential. And then he went on and talked a little bit about Marquise Siegel, the safety from K-State, who went in the 5th round. He called him a terrific downhill defensive back with great instincts and physicality. If you watch the East-West Shrine game, there was a pass to the sideline where Marquise Siegel just comes up and just lays the wood. And you're talking about a guy who ran 4.37. So he's got potential to be a good coverage player, but he also is pretty instinctive and physical. And Tony says Marquise Siegel could surprise. And he thinks he's a guy who could surprise. And he wasn't done yet. You know, that was the one thing about Tony in this piece in Sportscada, and why you guys should all check it out. He didn't just finish, you know, he just didn't go in with, a few guys. He went through the entire Niner draft class and even hit some undrafted guys. Curtis Rourke, the quarterback from Indiana, he said he's coming off a great season at IU. He led, Indiana to the playoffs, and he did it playing the entire season on a bum knee, which he's now going to have surgically repaired. Tony likes his decision-making and said, he's a really smart quarterback who makes good decisions in the pocket. And Tony thinks that if Rourke had been healthy, that he could have been a 4th-round pick. How about that? Niners got him in the 7th round, and you see why they were so excited. I kind of heard the same thing from the Niners about Brock Purdy. I'm not saying Curtis Rourke is Brock Purdy. Don't give me a bunch of comments. Krueg thinks Curtis Rourke's Brock Purdy. I don't. But Brock Purdy was another guy that, had more of like a 4th or 5th round grade in the minds of many, and still fell to the 7th round. Curtis Rourke, if he had been healthier, if he had, had a few different, had been able to test before the top combine, in Tony's mind, he could have been a 4th round pick. I thought that was really interesting. Tony also talked about Connor Colby, the guard from Iowa. Pauline called Colby a nice guard who possesses a lot of upside. He thinks he's a nice-sized guard who possesses a lot of upside and growth potential. The thing about Colby that I like is he's just such an experienced player, and I think he's I'm not saying he's topped out, but I think he's ready to roll. Like if the 49ers, if Ben Barch had us an injury in the preseason, I would not be surprised if the Niners threw Connor Colby out there because, according to Tony, the guy's got he's got good size and growth potential, but, guy also had 50 career starts at Iowa, and he seems to be a fairly polished player. So Tony sounds like he's a fan of Colby. Then we got to Junior Bergen, or I should say Tony Pauline got to Junior Bergen. He said Bergen was a personal favorite of mine, calling him incredibly quick, a terrific route runner who separates and catches well. So I love to hear that because I'm waiting to see something from Junior Bergen. The Niners are excited about him. I didn't really see it in the mini camp. Guys, impressive players sometimes don't show themselves without pads. Football's played with pads. So, it's a game played with pads. So it's hard to evaluate sometimes in OTAs and minicamp. All right, Tony also commented on the undrafted players, and he says a couple of these undrafted players could be the steals of the draft. We'll tell you who they are in just a second. But first, We are also brought to you by Mancini Sleep World. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Mancini Sleep World. They've got the best price guarantee. They'll match the lowest price you can find. 365 night guarantee. You get a full year to try it out, and free next day delivery. So if you've been thinking about upgrading your bed, now's the time. Just make sure you jump on it as soon as possible, and make sure you use the code Krueg10 at the checkout. If you do, you're going to save an additional 10%. That's KRUEG 10 at checkout at any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com, and you will save an additional 10% just because you know me. All right, let's get back to our video. Tony Pauline breaking down the 49ers 2025 draft class, and he even went into the undrafted guys, which makes me so happy. And he said the Niners got 2 steals after the draft. And he says Isaiah Neyor and Corey Kiner are potentially 2 major steals. So let's talk about what Tony said about these guys. As far as Isaiah Neyor, he said, hey, man, he's a former track and field star. He progressed a ton the final year at Nebraska, and he's still developing. So, but I mean, Tony knows the measurables: 6'4", 220, 4.40 speed, 36-inch arms, 40-inch vertical. And then he's coming off a very good year at Nebraska, his most productive in college football. And Tony, basically acknowledged what I was telling you guys earlier in the week, that, Neyor is raw. You see high school kids body catch. NFL and college players, they pluck the ball with their hands, and he was body catching out patterns. So he's raw. He's got a lot of work to do, but man, what this kid has at 6'4", 220 and those measurables cannot be coached. And then he loves Corey Kiner, the running back. And he said he's loved Corey Kiner for a while. The Cincinnati running back, great contact balance. He described him as tough, instinctive, and hard charging. He says he's a tough, instinctive, hard charging running back, has the potential to be an NFL rotational running back. So do not sleep on Corey Kiner. Kiner averaged, by the way, 3.8 yards after contact in 2024. That was 9th among the running backs that were eligible for the 2025 NFL draft. So Corey Kiner, and I talked to Bobby T about him a few weeks ago, and I'm like, man, the contact balance jumps off the page. He's like, that's it. He's like, the kid's got tremendous contact balance. The one thing about that Bobby also told me a couple weeks ago was that, hey, man, you can't really evaluate these running backs until you get to camp. So I try not to spend too much time, going crazy over the running backs before the pads come on, because it's a position that almost is impossible to evaluate it without pads. Tony wasn't done there. Wasn't done with those guys, though. Another guy that he really likes is an undrafted guy, and the final guy, he likes Derek Canteen. Derek Canteen, the corner who played at Georgia Southern, then played at Cincinnati. Tony said he's a favorite of his. And the one thing about Canteen, he's got size, he's got ball skills. He has, if you look at it, he's got a bunch of career interceptions. So that's a name to keep an eye on. I kind of think, Canteen is going to be in a tough situation to make the roster. But, the fact that Tony really likes him and that he's a favorite of Tony's and was a favorite of Tony's going back to his days at Georgia Southern, that alone will make me take an extra look at Canteen this summer. And just to sum it up, Pauline gave the Niners draft 2025 an A. How about that? We've seen people just rip the 49ers draft. Probably the guy who has evaluated it, who knows the most about the actual prospects, Tony Pauline, gives their draft an A. Not a B, not a C+, not a B+, an A. Not an A-, an A. Think about that for a second. He said the only thing he said, he would have preferred the Niners to hit the offensive line a little earlier, but he said, man, they revamped their D-line. He sees Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, C.J. West, and Nick Martin as full-time starters within 2 years. I would have to agree there. And he thinks Jordan Watkins and Jordan James will be quality contributors, and he thinks they're potential steals, and he likes some of the undrafted guys. So, man, if you're one of these people that, wants to think positively about the 49ers at every turn, you're going to love this article. Check it out in Sportscada. You can also check it out. There's a link to it in 49er Web Zone. Great 49er website, by the way. We'll shout out 49er Web Zone in the video. They do a fantastic job. I love some of the people over there. And that does it for our video. So thanks to our sponsors. The links are in the description below. Hit like and subscribe on your way out the door. If you're watching the video, you're seeing me. I'm here hanging out in Connecticut with my sister, little vacation, and I got a little Pat the Patriot T-shirt as a souvenir. So I'll be bringing that back to the Bay. You'll be seeing Pat the Patriot as I support my nephew, the great Joe, who's a big Patriots fan. So not everybody can be a Niner fan. Joe's a big Patriots fan. Anyway, thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to Pig and Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueg Show, Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. And of course, our good friends at Mancini's. And thanks to all of you for supporting the Krueg Show on YouTube.